Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, welcome to the 284th episode of Robservations, the show about something. I, of course, am your Viceroy of Verisimilitude, your master of fun and wonder, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. And as always, Robservations is brought to you by Lucky Tiger Men's grooming products for those men who want to look good and feel great. And as always, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, you imagination connoisseurs that make up what I'd like to think is the best fan community on the web. If you go to their website at getluckytiger.com, you, of course, can use PGS for this community for Post-Geek Singularity and get 20% off your order. So today was interesting. I noticed that yesterday I started seeing things pop up about Dead Upload Day or something like that. I didn't get a memo, so I'm here today. I know that I'm now competing directly with John Campea and Christian Harloff's Light Side, Dark Side Star Wars show, so I apologize for that. But what this Dead Upload Day is all about, and I've been reading and watching all kinds of things about COPPA. And some people say COPPA, but I have to say COPPA because my go-to karaoke song is Barry Manilow's Copacabana. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'll give you a little taste. Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl with yellow feathers in her hair and a dress cut down to there. She would merengue and do the cha-cha. That is decidedly not what COPPA is. What is COPPA, you might ask? It is the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Now, there's a lot surrounding COPPA, and I figured I would go see what it's all about. So I just thought that I would go to the source. So I went to the uscode.house.gov to look up COPPA. And first of all, it starts. Definitions. 1. What is child? Online children's the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. So how is child or children defined? It says right here, number 1, the term child means an individual under the age of 13. What is an operator? How is an operator defined? The term operator, not like Sade said, smooth operator, which I'd like to think I've been most of my life. But no, operator. The term operator, A, means any person who operates a website located on the internet or an online service and who collects or maintains personal information from or about the users or visitors to such websites or online services, or on whose behalf such information is collected or maintained, where such website or online service is operated for commercial purposes, including any person offering products or service for sale through that website or online service involving commerce. Among the several states or with one or more foreign nations, in any territory of the United States or in the District of Columbia or between any such territory and another such territory or any state or foreign nation, between the District of Columbia and any state, territory, or foreign nation, but does not include any nonprofit entity that would otherwise be exempt from coverage under Section 45 of this title. The commission, the term commission means the Federal Trade Commission, and then it goes on and on and on. They say a parent is a legal guardian. Personal information. What do they define as personal information? The term personal information means individual identifiable information about an individual collected online, including a first or last name, a home or other physical address, including street names and or the name of a city or a town, an email address, a telephone number, a social security number, any other identifier that the commission determines permits the physical or online contacting of a specific individual. Verifiable parental consent. The term verifiable parental consent means any reasonable effort taking into consideration available technology, including a request for authorization for future collection, use, and disclosure described in the notice to ensure that a parent of a child receive notice of the operator's personal information collection, use, and disclosure practices, and authorizes the collection, use, and disclosure as applicable of personal information and the subsequent use of that information before that information is collected from that child. And it goes on and on. The term person means any individual, partnership, corporation, trust, estate, cooperative, association, or other entity. Limitation: a commercial website or online service or a portion of a commercial website or online service shall not be deemed directed to children solely for referring or linking to a commercial website or online service directed to children by using information, location tools, including a directory, index, reference pointer, or hypertext link. Website or online services directed to children means, in general, the term website or online service directed to children means a commercial website or online service that is targeted to children, or that portion of a commercial website or online service that is targeted to children. So that's basically how they're defining this. Now, why is everybody so up in arms? Why is everyone so crazy? Well, YouTube, this platform that you're watching me on right now, was fined $175 million for violating this act, because YouTube, as any YouTuber knows, is constantly gathering analytics about everything. Who are you? Where are you? What are you doing? Where are you from? Where do you live? All of these things are being collected by YouTube all the time. So there are a lot of YouTube sites that are directed toward children. And whether it's unboxings, whether it's video game things, there's my God, there's a lot of programming directed at children on YouTube. Now, YouTube claimed that they weren't doing this, but they were. They flat out were, and that's why they had to pay the government a fine. So basically what YouTube has done already, it's already been implemented for channels. We have to delineate whether or not our channels are directed toward children, which you say for your overall channel, and then also each individual video that gets uploaded, you have to say whether or not it is directed toward children. Now, for me, I can see my analytics of people that watch this channel. By the way, I wish there were more people, so smash like if you like my videos and subscribe. And if you don't, you don't. But I don't have anybody under 13 looking at this channel as far as YouTube analytics are concerned. So I am certainly not directed toward children. However, I myself am a self-identified aging man-child, and I watch a lot of YouTube channels. While I would not say they were directed at children, if you weren't discerning and you didn't know, say you're a guy who's never heard of Hot Toys figures, or you don't collect high-end collectible toys, or you don't understand the difference between vintage Star Wars action figures. If you have, say, a yak face from the original Star Wars figure release, the vintage figure release, and you don't understand the difference between that figure and a figure that might have been released later, you might think that certain YouTube channels, such as some of my favorites, Analog Toys and also Justin's Collection, which are two channels I watch about toys all the time, are perhaps potentially directed toward children, because it requires a certain understanding of what is and isn't children's programming. For the casual observer, just talking about toys, you might think that, oh, well, if they're talking about toys, it must be directed toward children, which, by the way, I resent. Even though I resemble one, I resent that people would say that, because I really enjoy channels like Justin's Collection. I love hearing him say figure. I got a new figure today, mate. I love that. Justin's Collection is one of my favorite destination channels on YouTube, because he gets Hot Toys first, and I love seeing his collection. I love the way it's displayed. I pretty much love everything about his collection. There's another person I watch that I've talked about on this channel before, Jenik. Jenik is, I believe he's Korean, although I'm not sure because I've never really seen him. But Jenik, Jenic. Jenik, basically his channel just shows him painting models, whether they're Gundam models, car models. The man, I've said before, is the Rembrandt of model painting. I am in awe of his skills, and I really just enjoy watching his channel. Now, somebody might look at his channel, well, that guy's painting robots, so his channel must be directed toward kids. Well, there's a lot of people like that are very worried that YouTube, which a lot of people are starting to rely on for revenue to live on, are going to be demonetized. If your channel is directed toward children, YouTube is becoming very draconian in the sense that they're making it very difficult to make money on your YouTube channel if it's directed toward kids. And on one hand, I am sympathetic. I think a lot of people have made there's a lot of great children's programming that is being made by a lot of great people with all the best intentions. Unfortunately, there were a lot of bad operators who abused this platform to go after kids, monetize kids, make money, and do other nefarious things. And I think that it was inevitable that ultimately YouTube was going to have to do this in some way, shape, or form. Now, the problem is it has been very difficult. There's been a lot of people, I don't think YouTube ever anticipated just how many questions people have. And they've released videos trying to explain the general terms. And what I really think that YouTube needs to do is have some kind of a town meeting where, and I don't care if it takes 10 hours, but every YouTuber that is making Google AdSense a lot of money, as many people know, I rely on income to keep this channel going. And the time that I am on this channel, I couldn't do this channel unless it had some kind of compensation. And I've used a lot of it recently to buy equipment that you're going to see and make this channel better. John Campea, for instance, uses a lot of the income that he gets on his own channel to get more cameras, to pay graphics people, to pay me. And it's the kind of thing that YouTubers rely on to keep going. And Google AdSense, well, that's how we get paid. Google AdSense collects all of that money, and they pay us, and they take a substantial chunk of it. And rightfully so. They take 50% of your ad revenue and 30% of your super chat money or any other kind of money that comes in. And that is because they provide an incredible platform that is global in its reach. It is amazing technology, and we're not paying to use it. We pay the people that do make money, that are monetized, are definitely paying for this system to exist. And I think it's terrific, and I think it's worth the money. And it absolutely, to me, it's amazing that I can sit here and talk to you about anything I want. But it's incredible, and it's worth paying for. The system is absolutely worth paying for. A 30%, let's call it a tax, but what your revenue sharing with the actual people that provide the infrastructure. But I believe that a 30% fee, or in a 50%, in terms of your ad revenue, a 50% split of your ad revenue based on what you're making is definitely fair. I think of this as infrastructure. You could apply it. You could say that, okay, well, the United States, for instance, all of our roads and all of our stoplights and all of our train tracks, all of our infrastructure that's been built with our tax dollars, it's the same thing. It's the reason why you pay taxes to the federal government, in the hope that all of the great facilities and the great services that we as citizens of the United States receive are paid for by our tax dollars. I look at what YouTube makes and what Google makes off of this platform as absolutely worth it and essential, because what they have made is astonishing. In all of human history, there's been nothing like this, and it's incredible. However, there wasn't exactly a lot of regulation on YouTube, and that was their own fault. But there were a lot of people that abused the lack of regulation. So the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, I think, is essential. If there's one thing that we need to do, it's protect kids. I do think, however, the law, especially when it comes to YouTube, is a little draconian. And once again, it takes away the onus from the parents. Now, I think, look, we have to protect our kids. We always have. protected our kids. The FCC has protected children in terms of ads. And I remember back when there was in the 80s, when there was long form cartoons like G.I. Joe and He-Man, there was questions as to whether or not they were just half an hour long commercials. And regulating things to protect children, I have no problem with. However, a lot of YouTubers who have spent years on this platform building their audience and building their brand using this platform, and make no mistake, we're in partnership. Anybody who's on YouTube is in partnership with Google and with YouTube. And I think that they owe their partners transparency. They owe their partners an explanation. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of very legitimate questions about how this is going to work moving forward. And we don't have answers. And I think that today, a dead upload day, I just saw a little bit of it yesterday. And it's, I've already missed enough shows this month, and people don't like it when I miss shows. So I figured I was gonna come on anyway. And people have been asking me about this. And the short answer is, I do believe in COPPA. I do think it's ultimately a good thing for kids. YouTube paid $175 million in fines, so they have been hit hard. I wish I had $175 million. I will never make $175 million in the entire time I've lived on this planet, probably. But here's hoping that isn't necessarily true. But they had to do something. So this platform that is essentially free to use, if you're not monetized, it's still here, it's still free. And certainly it's cutting into a lot of people's revenue, and a lot of people are scared. And I worry, and I think a lot of people do, say Analog Toys, which is a new channel that I've been watching lately. I mean, it's new to me, where there's a great analysis and explanation and exploration of classic toy lines. Now, if I was 12 years old or 11 years old or even 10 years old, these are shows that I would watch on YouTube. Now, are they directed at me? No, not necessarily. A 10-year-old couldn't afford vintage toys anyway, nor do I think a 10-year-old would want vintage toys. But if I was a 10-year-old kid the way I was, 10 years ago, or 10 years ago, a lot longer than that, 40 years ago, I would watch that kind of a show. So people are wondering, if they have channels that they have not deemed to be for kids, and kids then watch, could they get in trouble? And I think there's been no real explanation of all of this, and there needs to be. There needs to be a huge. YouTube must come out with guidelines. They must explain to their creators that they have made a lot of money off of exactly what is going on, and they need to be very specific, and they need to answer everybody's specific questions. And I think it's definitely something that is worth talking about and worth learning about and understanding. And for the most part, a lot of creators are wondering what is going on. I know John Campy is consulting a lawyer, because the problem is, if one of your videos is discovered as being in violation of COPPA, you can get fined $42,000 per video. That's a lot of money. Now, with that kind of money at stake, it would take me years to make $42,000 just talking to you on YouTube, getting super chats. So you can imagine any kind of a fine like that would wipe somebody out. So there's a lot of questions. And my feeling about it is, I believe that children should be protected. I think COPPA is a good thing. I think there's been a lot of abuse of online systems. However, I think that a platform like YouTube, which has become so vibrant and so important to so many people globally, there's never been a platform like this. And I wholeheartedly support YouTube. And I think what they're doing, let's face it, they built this platform. We're using it. And, it's like everything else. We have to be mindful of the business aspects of what it's like to run this kind of a platform. And I think regulation is never necessarily a bad thing. And when it comes to this, what we need is to know exactly, we as creators need to have our concerns addressed. And the fact is, there's a lot of us, and there's a lot of people that need to know the answers to these questions, and they don't know. This was sort of sprung on us very quickly, and we're expected to adhere to it. And there's a lot of people who have been working on YouTube a lot longer than I have that require YouTube. It's their livelihood. And it's a big hit to find out. I mean, if you have to leave YouTube, for some people, it's the equivalent of literally losing your job, losing your income. And that can be rough. So I think that what YouTube needs to do is they have to come out with a very detailed explanation, maybe ask people to send in their specific questions, maybe do a live stream. And if that live stream takes a long time, they have a lawyer, they have a panel. YouTube should have a panel and do a live town hall. And they should have their biggest creators or the people that are affected the most be the ones that are the mouthpieces for all of us, and they're able to deal with the questions many people have. Anyway, I just want to talk about it because I've had a lot of people ask, so I figured today would be a day to discuss it. So there you go. Yeah. Anyway, now back to the regular. Let's get back to more important subjects. Like, hey, do I believe that here's I'm just going to say a little bit because I've been talking about the Snyder Cut. Once again, hey, Film Gob made a video about me. I love it when Film Gob does videos, and I think he's only made one other one with me in it, but he made one. I was a little fatter back then. I was drinking a little bit more. I was on Collider Heroes, and he did a compilation of every time I came out in favor of Kevin Feige, or every time I called Kevin Feige my Lord and Savior, or the Lord and Savior of all comic book movies. And, you know, I stand by that. I think what Kevin Feige has done with the Marvel Cinematic Universe over 23 movies with an average income of $1 billion each is unprecedented in Hollywood history. And as a longtime fan of these things, I think that what he's done is amazing, and I love it. Does that mean that I don't like DC movies? It's such a weird DC Marvel schism. It's like I love getting attacked on Twitter by people that don't know me and don't know where I'm coming from. My DC bona fides, I finally am just going to have to come out and start saying, I tweeted to somebody else, I'm like, I have more DC comics than you do. As a matter of fact, the person who tweeted that to me literally moments before, I've been waiting for this, Teen Titans Omnibus #4 arrived. Now, along with my DC Absolute Editions and all that. But I'm just, it's amazing to me that in the fan community, people are up in arms about whether you support the Snyder Cut or not. And somebody said, well, I bet you don't have the stomach to talk to whomever about the Snyder Cut. And I'm like, my stomach is cast iron. And I would love to interview somebody in the know who could stand up to my rigorous questioning from the post-production side of film. I would love to stand up, and the first question that I would ask somebody after my preliminary questions, but the first big question I would ask somebody from a post-production supervision standpoint and from a production standpoint is, how many visual effect shots are in the movie total, and how many are completely finished, and how many remain to be finished? Those simple questions would tell me a lot. And what I would like to do is I would like to be able to talk to somebody, even Zack Snyder himself. I invite Zack Snyder to be on this channel. Love to talk to him. As you all know, I was surprised by his Dawn of the Dead. I like 300. I enjoyed Man of Steel, and I think the Ultimate Edition of Batman v Superman is quite an interesting film and gets a bad rap. I'd love to have him on, or anybody that worked on the Justice League film, to answer some very pointed, specific questions. I'm not going to, they wouldn't be disparaging. They would all be questions about the practicalities of what actually exists. And I don't understand why everyone's so coy about it. Zack Snyder's certainly been coy about it, releasing images. I would just like to know flat out if everyone's like, oh, this cut exists. They say a cut exists. Does a finished film exist? And if it doesn't exist, that means there is a cut that is incomplete. And you can ask very specific questions and find out specific answers. How many visual effect shots are in the film total? How many are completed? How many are not completed? That would tell me a lot of things. There's nobody that can answer those questions. Those are very specific, very simple questions that there is an answer to. Give me that answer. What is the answer? How many effect shots are in the film? How many are completed? And how many have yet to be completed? That would tell me a lot. Everyone talks, oh, there's a cut that's complete. No. I don't care about that. The word having a cut done says nothing. It doesn't mean your movie's finished. But if I heard that the visual effect shots were all, how many there are, let's say there's 1,500. Let's say there's 2,000. If I'm told there's 2,000 shots and all 2,000 are completed, that says a lot. That says a lot. If somebody tells me that there are 2,000 shots and 1,500 are completed, well, that means that there's 25% of the visual effects that have not been completed. That tells me a lot too. And that means we're way far away from having a finished film. And, yet the battle on Twitter goes on. And the funny thing is everyone says to me, they're like, well, Rob, what do you care? Well, I don't care. But what I do care about is misinformation in our community. When we as fans, I always go back to the idea of the fan, the efforts of the fan community to get America's first space shuttle named Enterprise. And yet that space shuttle never went into space. What we should have done is named the first space shuttle that went into space Enterprise. And perhaps the Enterprise that was named Enterprise could have been called Constitution, because the Enterprise is a Constitution class ship. But these kinds of things, fandom, God love us all, but we tend to jump the gun. And there's information out there that we should be demanding, and I want fandom to be smart, because now that we have social media and now that we actually have a voice where we can do things, it's nice if that voice can be employed with the greatest of information. We should have information gatherers out there, not who heard what, not who thought even Zack Snyder said, yeah, I've got a cut. I've got a many cuts of the film. Well, I'm like, okay, so there's no finished cut of the movie, but you have to work within the entertainment business to know that. And that's what I want to know. I want to know specific answers. So if anybody wants to criticize me about, oh, I'm a Marvel shill, I'm not a Marvel shill. I don't, nobody pays me. I love the MCU. I think what they've done is unprecedented and amazing. That said, heck, I'm the guy that's defending DC movies that other fans don't like. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Cut. I really liked Aquaman. It's very funny to me. The fan community is very funny. But if we want to know about, I will say this flat out. If you want me to interview anybody to actually confirm or deny this, and you have access to them, I will put anybody on this show. I'll do a live show with them and ask them pointed questions about the Snyder Cut. Happy to do it. I'm putting out a challenge right now. If anybody can find me, anyone, all the way up to Zack Snyder himself, maybe producer, was Chuck Roven a producer on the Snyder Cut of Justice League? I'm not sure, but I'm happy to do it, because I guarantee you, I am the only person, with maybe the exception of Kevin Smith, I am the only person who's in the fan community that could also pinpoint and ask the proper questions to tell you people exactly what is and isn't true about the Snyder Cut. I'm the only person. I'll flat out say it. You guys know it's true. So anybody that wants to talk Snyder Cut, I'm your man. And oh my God, can I just say that I have a deluge of letters. I mean, I can't even imagine how many letters. You guys, you prolific letter writers, my God. But anyway, let's just jump into what people have to say. People have stuff to say. One day, Jer Manian. She, Jer, I never know. I don't know what to say, but I just love the name Jer. Novel recommendation, Alistair Rand, House of Suns. I don't know that. I don't know that. But I got to look into that. I like anybody who gives me a novel recommendation goes up in my book because you know me and books. Jet Screamer, coprophagia. That's funny. I like that. That's very Salo. That's very Pier Paolo Pasolini for you. Willow Yang is here. Willow Yang says, you should have told the film festival lady about her odor so that she wouldn't think other people are avoiding her because she's unattractive. You know what's funny? I thought about that, Willow. What Willow is referring to on the John Campea show this morning, a viewer asked, what are our most unpleasant movie-going experiences? And I had one. At the Seattle Film Festival, I want to say it was at the 1985 Seattle Film Festival, which would be the 10th Seattle International Film Festival. For my birthday, I used to get a full series pass, which allowed me for the month that the Seattle Film Festival would go on, I would be able to go see all the movies. And there was a group of us, we all knew each other, and we all sat in the same place. And there was a woman that came in, and she was heavy set, but and she was like a landscape artist or a gardener. She always came in just came in from the job, and she smelled worse than anyone I've ever met in my life, more so than homeless people. It was bad. It was bad. And somehow she would end up always sitting next to my favorite seat. And she was there about 25% of the time. Mostly she was there midweek. She wasn't there on the weekends. And I was nice to her when she first sat down. I didn't realize what I was dealing with. And so she would come sit down next to me and strike up a conversation. And sitting through movies was, and I could have moved. I suppose I could have moved. I didn't move because it was usually pretty packed. But man, it was rough. It was a rough slog. And even back in the 80s, my philosophy of every person has a story to tell. All you have to do is listen. I've always believed that everyone else, there's always another side of the story. So I never said anything. I suffered in silence, but it was bad. It was bad. But it reminded me when I was saying that, it did remind me of Willow's letter, her lovely letter about SpongeBob SquarePants, which, by the way, I've been getting feedback for. People say to only watch the first 3 seasons. I don't know if that's true, but I appreciate that. And Willow, yes, I had a laugh. Captain Robert April is here. Captain Robert April says, COPPA was originally written in 98, pre-YouTube. Too many terms are outdated, and lots of us are about to get burned badly. Yeah, I think that's true too. And a lot of what Dead Upload Day is about today was to get that law rewritten. And I think that's a good thing. I think that COPPA is, here's the problem. Frequently, our bureaucracy is way behind our technology. And because our people don't know where this technology is going to go. I mean, I was getting alerts from my credit bureau that my email address is on the dark web. Like, at first I have to say that my email address is kind of out there for the world, but I more than anything, I'm like, wow, that's kind of cool that my email address is on the dark web. What does that mean? But I mean, I know what it means, but the technology is going, it's expanding so rapidly, so quickly, and it's changing every moment. I think having laws that are on the books since 1998, that's an eternity as far as the internet is concerned. YouTube didn't exist then. So, and because I think it was the state of New York was one of the people that sued YouTube, what I find disingenuous about all of this is that when you're using old laws, I mean, it's funny, the same people that are going to bitch about let's change the COPPA laws will still allow the Second Amendment to stay on the books as written, as if the Second Amendment, hey, they always anticipated assault rifles. We as people, the great thing about America is our founding fathers knew that as the country grew and changed and evolved, our laws should also grow and change and evolve. And that's why it did things like say that the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branch of our government are separate, and they're supposed to use checks and balances on each other. They were smart that way. But yes, Captain Robert April, you are correct. By the way, how are you feeling, sir? I hope you're feeling better. I know Captain April was in a horrible car accident, and he was laid up for a while. Alexander Wilson is here. Alexander Wilson says, my old man was a basketball player, and the documentary Hoop Dreams is a masterpiece to us. By the way, if you guys haven't seen Hoop Dreams, whether you like basketball or not, Hoop Dreams is one of the great documentaries. I would say not just sports documentaries. It's one of the great documentaries ever. Hoop Dreams is a masterpiece to us. It shows how parents pressure and damage kids to be stars and breadwinners for their families. Your thoughts? I love Hoop Dreams. I mean, Hoop Dreams to me is, it's not just about sports. It's about America. It's about, yes, I mean, you see it all the time, that especially in the entertainment industry, the new Shia LaBeouf movie, Honey Boy, is all about his volatile relationship with his father, who pushed a young Shia LaBeouf to be the breadwinner of the family. And I think in a lot of communities, sports are seen as a way out. There's a lot of communities where they have children that are very gifted, and those children, if they have athletic prowess, families see them as a way that their family can get money, that can get the security they've never had before. So parents tend to push kids. That's a big part of it. And it works outside, like whether you're interested in sports or not. Hoop Dreams is an amazing documentary, and it works on so many, many different levels. And in a way, I think it's sort of really uniquely American. But if you haven't seen it, it's absolutely something that I think everybody should see. So yes, Alexander, that is a good call. Now I'm going to start looking at these letters. I haven't looked at these letters yet. The first one, by the way, Amir B. Amir B wrote in yesterday and asked if I had seen his letter. I had not. So here's the first one I'm reading. So Amir B, here's your letter. I haven't read it. I haven't seen it. I'm just going to go sight unseen. I'm just going to dive right in. Hi, Rob. Thanks for reading my letter on verisimilitude with modern CGI. Wonderful thoughts. Really enjoyed it. Please feel free to share this on your show if you wish. Thank you. I finally had a chance to see The Irishman at the Vancouver Film Festival. I believe your prediction will come true. The movie will probably win a lot of major categories at the Oscars, and deservedly so. Alongside Parasite, I felt this was as close as flawless a movie can be. I don't intend to write a review here, but I want to talk about several aspects of the movie in front of and behind the camera that stood out for me. This won't entail any spoilers. The biggest standout for me in the movie was its editing. Rarely have I seen a film that its editing actually improves the narrative. Well, all good films, let me just say as an editor myself, all the great movies have great editing. All editing improves narrative. Well, not all editing, but all your great movies have editing that has improved the narrative. For me, I always thought of editing as something that helps to maintain the pacing and narrative of a story, or something that can hinder it, but never an element that adds on to the story. Ah, yes. Social Network is the only movie I can recall that after watching, I thought editing actually improved the overall story. For example, there's a 10-minute scene in the first hour that the story goes back and forth between the email exchanges read at 2 hearings, what Mark is doing and what the Winklevoss twins are doing. These scenes are edited so well that for the first time, I got excited for people reading freaking emails. What? You don't get excited when I read emails? No. Now I'm adding Irishman to this list. Thelma Shoemaker, the long-standing collaborator of Scorsese, edited the shit out of this movie. The editing is so impressive. It is smooth, helps with narrative, and made some of my favorite exchanges in the movie. Another standout is the screenplay by Steve Zalian, who has written some of my all-time favorite screenplays in Schindler's List, Moneyball, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The dialogues are snappy, quick, funny, and very emotionally impactful. When telling a story that spans over half a century with so many characters, it's hard to be consistent with dialogue, but he does it with such mastery. There's a uniqueness to each character, and as they grow, so do their dialogues. The screenplay also plays with the passage of time so beautifully. Shawshank Redemption is the only movie I can think of on the top of my mind that dealt with the passage of time so smoothly. That was 21 years. This is 50 years. What Zalian has achieved is nothing short of extraordinary. Yeah, I'll bet you $1 million he is going to win Best Adapted Screenplay, because The Irishman is, of course, based on a book called I Heard You Paint Houses. I'm also in agreement with everyone else in their performances. De Niro and Pacino were both acting titans when I was growing up, two polar opposites in terms of conveying emotion, but both equally wonderful. So it made my heart full of joy when I saw them in this. After Heat, seeing them together in another masterpiece felt like a dream, but it happened, and oh, they deliver. Let's get to Joe Pesci. As George Carlin once said, I don't pray to God, I only pray to Joe Pesci. I adore him, and he is on par with De Niro and Pacino in this movie. One of the biggest laughs I ever had in my life was in Goodfellas when his mother takes out the painting and he comments, I love it. One dog is looking one way, one is looking the other way, and the guy is like, what do you want me to do? And he hasn't missed a beat after all these years. Finally, when it comes to directing, Scorsese knocks it out of the park. I think Chris Stuckman said that out of 5 breakout directors of the 1970s, Scorsese is the only one that never had a misstep and grows in his craft as years go by. I wholeheartedly agree. The movie feels like not only a commentary on his old work, but also on greater things in life, especially thoughts and emotions as one gets closer to the final days in their lives. What was also shockingly good about the movie is its subtlety. It's not pretentious as some movies try and be, such as, well, anything that Damon Lindelof writes. It's also not in your face with its messages. Overall, it was the fastest 3 hours and 30 minutes in a theater, and it's a movie that should be seen in theaters. Thank you, Rob. Have a great rest of the day. Well, Amir, thank you for, first of all, sending me this letter. What a great letter. And second of all, The Irishman drops on Netflix tomorrow, and I can't wait to see it. It's a movie I've actually bought tickets to and didn't get to see. I'm very, very excited. I'm bummed I won't see it in the theater, but I've got a pretty good system, so I'm going to watch it on that, which is pretty good. Here's a letter from Joe Foley. Joe says, hey, Rob, I hope you're feeling supercalifragilisticexpialidocious today. I've been enjoying Disney Plus a great deal, mostly due to releases I haven't been able to find on physical media over the years, such as the Mighty Ducks animated series and obscure straight-to-Disney Channel movies. What I enjoy most about Disney Plus is a complaint I've had with Netflix since its inception. Special features. While Disney Plus still has a way to go, in my opinion, I applaud them for including behind the scenes material in their service. Since you may be the YouTuber who knows more about this topic than most, I have 3 relating questions involving the future of special features. Do you think Disney will develop behind the scenes for future releases? For example, if Rise of Skywalker does not get a Blu-ray release, will they still make a director's commentary? You know what? Let me answer these one at a time. First of all, this is a great letter, and these are great questions. Disney used to be the premier, as far as studios go, the premier studio for special features. When I started my special features career, I worked for a company called Curdy Pellerin that exclusively created Disney special features. We did, when the Toy Story movies came out on DVD, we did the Ultimate Toy Box, Toy Story, the Ultimate Toy Box. I worked on things. I worked, of course, on Snow White, the first release of Snow White. I worked on The Emperor's New Groove. And my first DVD special features that I ever did was for the Fantasia anthology, Fantasia and Fantasia 2000, that I was really proud of. All that stuff, the stuff that we did in the late 90s, early aughts, was never, they didn't use it again. They used my Disney Through the Decades on the Blu-ray release of Snow White, but they still updated it. But Disney did the best. And one of the things that really made me bummed out about special features is for Tron, of course, I've talked about this before. I made an 88-minute documentary that I edited and directed. I edited the film. I brought in Rob Cipriano, who was also working at Curdy Pellerin, to help me edit because it was a huge project. So Rob Cipriano and I edited the Tron documentary, and then I directed the making of Tron and conducted all the interviews. I was very disappointed to see that it is not available. Maybe it will be. I know some people that work at Disney Plus, and I'm going to pester them to get my Tron documentary up online, up on Disney Plus, because it should be, damn it. But I think, look, to put new programming, it really is going to depend on how many people delve into those special features. They're going to get real-time analytics back to see who's watching special features, how many special features they're watching. And if there's a huge call for special features, I think they might do more. I hope so. I would hope it doesn't cost that much to produce audio commentaries, and I think people would. And one of the things about Disney is they were big on preserving their historical legacy. And of course, they're also big on whitewashing their legacy. And I understand that. I get where they're coming from. But I hope that they continue to deal with special features because it's really great to have them. And there's a lot of special features out there that have been lost to time. And I think that's a bummer. Like, for instance, I adored the journey that we did through the Disney animation department, the 2D animation department, for The Emperor's New Groove. And it was a lot of fun. And we shot all that stuff, and it was kind of wacky. And it was a lot of fun to make and to edit and to shoot. And I would love to see that because I think those special features, if you don't have the 2-disc DVD, I don't think those features ever showed up again. So I hope so. It's going to depend on how many people watch special features and whether or not they think it's worthwhile in terms of spending the money. Should they spend the money on special features or new original programming? Can they do both? I think that is something they don't know yet, but kudos to them. I mean, you watch Endgame and there's a lot more special features on their Endgame release on Disney Plus than there are on the 4K discs that we have already received. Do you think Netflix will ever make special features of their own? I do not. I don't think so. It's not part of their paradigm. I can't imagine them doing it, but who knows? They might. The thing is, they're eventually, I think Netflix is going to have very little content that is not created by them ultimately. And unless they're going to start creating content, and they've done interesting offshoot things with the cast of like Stranger Things. So maybe they will. But again, it's all about how many people watch it. And I've learned, and I hate to say this, I'm only using this as a paradigm that I've learned. Only 20% of the people that were buying physical media really cared about special features. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community, are different. But for the Gen Pop, they only are interested in the movie, unfortunately. 3, do you think physical media will step up its game? No. The heyday for physical media was really over in about 2007, 2008. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be great special features. But in the early aughts, when DVD was taking off and it was selling through the roof, the studios had so much money, their marketing departments were paying for it. Here's another thing that people don't understand. It's difficult to get people to understand this. I received budgets. Well, I'll even talk budgets. I'll give you an example of what kind of money that we're looking at. My budget to produce the special features for XMen 2 was $150,000. So my company, Ludovico Technique, in 2002, 2003, was given $150,000 to produce all the special features on the XMen 2 disc. Now, I had to create what's called a content proposal. And I would come up with everything that I wanted to put on the disc that I wanted to make for the XMen 2 disc. I'd have to submit that to the studio with a budget. Now, in the case of XMen 1.5 and XMen 2 that I did, I was told what the budget was beforehand. And I was hired because of Bryan Singer. I was hired and I didn't even know. He didn't even call me up. I literally got a call from Fox saying, Bryan Singer says you're going to do X-Men 1.5 and X2, because the first X-Men disc came out right when DVD was new. And so the first X-Men disc didn't have a lot of stuff on it. And when X-Men 2 started to be made, there was a thought that Bryan was going to shoot 2 more origin scenes that they were going to incorporate into the first X-Men. One was about the origin of Cyclops. The other was about the origin of Storm. And they never did that. But they had solicited this disc or whatever. So X-Men 1.5 was born, and that came out on DVD. So I was hired to do X-Men 1.5 and X2. X-Men 1.5 had a separate budget, but because X2 was a new movie, my budget was $150,000. Now, for that money, I could spend it any way I wanted to, as long as I delivered what the studio wanted from me to be on that disc. So anything that we agreed on, I had to deliver. Now, we always over-delivered because we were fanboys. So for that disc, I hired my good buddy, Dave Parker, who later went on to direct The Hills Run Red, that I produced, but I would bring Dave Parker on, and he would help me shape and craft all the material. I was going to Vancouver and interviewing people, doing all the EPK interviews and doing interviews for the DVD. And then I'd bring material back, and Dave would digitize it and would start cutting it all together. And then we would work on it together. And so it was a long process that took months at a time. And of course, I was paying Dave's salary, and I had to pay for insurance, and I had to pay for anything that any travel and hotels or anything like that came out of that budget. So that wasn't insubstantial. Now, to give you another example, Return of the King. I didn't actually work on Return of the King because I jumped over and went and did Narnia. But from what I heard, Return of the King's budget for special features, just the special features, was $7 million. Just for the documentaries that are on. Now, you have to understand, people were like, what? $7 million? As far as I know, that was the most expensive bunch of special features ever done. Although my boss did go on to do King Kong and then The Hobbit, so maybe there was more money involved. But just like doing the extended version of Return of the King was another $20 million, but it already made so much money in all the Oscars that they were willing to invest the money. Now, when I worked for Curdy Peller and I worked on Fellowship of the Ring and Two Towers, we had a team of people. We had 30 people working on these discs for a year at a time each. So imagine 30 salaries being paid and all of the flight time and travel time. I mean, I went to London and interviewed Christopher Lee Gilbert. You be quiet now. So there was a lot of money being spent in the early aughts on these things, and there were teams of people, and there were auteurist directors like Charlie de Lauzirika, who did the Blade Runner documentary Dangerous Days that's on Blu-ray, the stuff that I did, and it was a great time. But ultimately, I think the studios realized that there wasn't enough consumer interest. They made just as much money selling movies without special features, really. Now, I know it's sacrilege. So I do think physical media, we had our time, and it was during the DVD era. Now, that's not to say we're still not getting great physical media, because we are. And look, I love it when Criterion puts out Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and they port over to the incredible documentary that was done for the original New Line Special Edition DVD, and they port it over to the Criterion Blue Disc. I mean, that's always an amazing thing that happens. But I just don't think they're ever going to spend that kind of money, because unfortunately, there's no return on it anymore. And while we all love special features, only 20% of even the film fans that bought physical media would choose to buy a special edition over a movie-only vanilla version. Hate to say it, but let me continue on. I've been told competition breeds excellence, and I was wondering if physical media will go down swinging or just roll over and die. No, it'll roll over and die. I looked at Disney Plus, and even I'm like, wow, Pixar, Disney, Star Wars, I'd say when they came out, 150, 200 Blu-rays of mine became, well, obsolete. Now, that's not to say there have been people that have been saying, channels that have been analyzing the HDR of the Disney Plus films, and they don't have a very robust HDR grade. And look, there's a lot of people that don't know how to use HDR properly yet, because that's high dynamic range for 4K discs and 4K programming. There's a lot of people that just don't know. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to apply their nits. But anyway, I think that it's all new, but I think that physical media right now, a great 4K disc is better than any streaming you're going to get in 4K now. So I would say, and with PlayStation 5 saying that they're going to incorporate a 4K disc player, I think hopefully we're going to get another 5 to 10 years of physical media, at least for 4K, because the only physical media I'm really buying anymore, unless it's from a small boutique company like Indicator and their disc of Birdie, Alan Parker's Birdie, which, by the way, is a fantastic disc. Oh my God, I'm so happy to have that. It's one of my favorite movies of the 80s. I dearly love that movie. I had it on DVD, but the transfer was terrible. The Indicator transfer is beautiful. There's great special features on it, really interesting interviews. So happy to have it. So there are people doing good work. There are people doing good work in that space. Heck, if you haven't got the new Arrow RoboCop disc that got released today, it's not 4K, it's Blu-ray, but wow, great stuff. But unfortunately, it's going to be a slow death. But now, what I'm more interested in is getting 4K copies of movies. What I want is great transfers. You know, as long as Studio Canal keeps it up, and they're going to bring me, I mean, I get Lynch's Elephant Man next year. I get my beloved Basic Instinct. I get Flash Gordon. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff still coming down the pike in 4K. So even if it has special features or not, I just got Alan Parker's Angel Heart from the UK. It's not even out here in America, but it came out in the UK. And remember, 4K discs are region free, at least for now. Off the top of my head, I have a few ideas on how physical media can move forward. Nothing groundbreaking that would save the platform, but some fun ideas I came up with at the time of this writing that could be used as a basis for future ideas. Studios can partner with YouTubers like yourself to have a live review section. That's a cool idea. Generate an online trivia competition based on the movie you've purchased with leaderboards and temporary prizes or digital trophies. Another really cool idea. An idea stolen from Facebook, script to screen. Have the screenplay scroll down on the bottom part of the screen as the scene plays out. Good idea. Statistics, counting how many times you've watched, how many minutes, most watched movie or scene, etc. That's a good idea too. Fan commentary. Give fans an opportunity to record their own audio commentary. For example, if Gilbert was to record a commentary of All Dogs Go to Heaven, then us members of the Post-Geek Singularity would have an option to download it to our discs. I like that. And lastly, the idea I'm most on the fence about, but may think to be most successful, a meme generator pause. A meme generator. Pause the movie at any point and have a creative suite option to instantly turn that screenshot into a meme. Oh, I think that's a genius idea. I think that's a great idea. A meme generator. I love it. It's hard for me to complain about my physical releases, especially when I can still get things like the second anniversary of Deadpool with 3 separate audio commentaries. And while I'll be sad to see it go, I won't be as sad if special features can live on. Before its end, I want to see physical media reach its ultimate form, or maybe it already has. Do you think the industry will further embrace special features or continue to stray away? What are some features you've always wanted to see incorporated? P.S. My only complaint with Disney Plus so far is that the original Shaggy dog is presented in color instead of black and white. It feels so wrong. What a great letter. Well, thank you very much, Joe. What a great letter about physical media. Look, as I said, I don't think physical media has a future. Unfortunately, you know, it's like that letter I was reading about the music industry. We as fans, thank God there's still books like Rinsler's The Making of Alien that came out recently, The Making of, I got it for my birthday, The Making of Planet of the Apes last May, and we're getting a lot of great books being published about these things, and there's a lot of fans. A lot of what I did, a lot of my job was sort of undercut by fan creators coming on and making documentaries about Psycho or American Werewolf in London or Nightmare on Elm Street. They're great documentaries. But when you have fans crowdfunding these documentaries or doing things, there's a documentary being made now about Showgirls that I can't wait to see. Of course, there's a documentary that some of the people like Roth Cornett worked on about Galaxy Quest. That's coming out. That's coming out theatrically through Fathom. So I think the idea of making special features is still alive and well. But again, it's become, now it's grassroots, it's fans, and it's hard. Like for me, it's hard for me to work on films and not get paid very much money. The least amount of money I was ever paid to do special features was $30,000. Now, again, remember, that might seem like a lot of money, but in that case, again, Dave Parker and I worked on that, and I have to pay him every week, and the money doesn't go that far. And there just isn't the money. I should say that all special features used to be paid by the marketing departments of the studios. That's where the money came from. And a lot of people don't understand that with movie studios, they're not just sitting on bundles of cash. They have to have money allocated. I mean, every dollar is accounted for. And you can't just decide like, well, let's finish the Snyder Cut. The question I would ask people then, and I would ask the person if I could ever interview anybody about the Snyder Cut, is who's going to pay for that? Who is going to pay for that? Where are they going to get the money? Whether it's $100, $100,000, or $100 million, that money has to come from somewhere. And the only way you can justify spending money at a studio is if ultimately there's something attached to it where it can make money. So would that expense be justified? I mean, you could theoretically say, all right, we've got another for Wonder Woman, since the Snyder Cut of Justice League features Wonder Woman, maybe as a marketing loss leader in front of Wonder Woman 84, they could find money as a marketing effort to promote Wonder Woman 84 by finishing the Snyder Cut. You have to have reasons to be able to do these things, because you can't just, it's so funny. Fans are like, well, it's only a few $1 million. What about the money they made on Joker? The money they made on Joker is allocated to, one, pay back how much Joker got made and pay back the studio for how much they spent to market it and how much they're paying for the infrastructure and where all that cash goes. It's not like they can just take away money from what Joker made and throw it toward another project. That is not how Hollywood works. They have to figure out a way to afford this. And at the time, in the early aughts, the studios were making so much money from DVDs that it made sense, you know, and they could market those things, and it worked out well. I mean, copies of DVDs, some like Disney titles were selling like, well, let's see, Joe. I want to know best-selling DVD of all time. I don't know the answer to this. Well, here's an answer. Oh my God. Okay. The best-selling DVD of all time appears to be, hang on a second, there's 16 more rows, but this is amazing. The best-selling DVD of all time, let's go down and see. It looks to be Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo sold 38,800,000 copies on DVD. 38 million copies. Now, when you sell 38 million, actually, this is incredible. On all video formats, look at these numbers. Okay, VHS, 520,000 copies on VHS were sold worldwide of The Lion King. Oh, no, of Finding Nemo, pardon me. 38,800,000 DVDs were sold, and 1,320,000 Blu-rays were sold, for a total revenue. Finding Nemo on home video made $801,400,000, almost $1 billion in revenue. That's why I could get a $2 million budget to make special features for Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Don't tell anybody. But this is astonishing. I mean, these numbers are monstrously huge. The Lion King made even more. The Lion King on all of its home video formats has made $852 million. Now think about that. Now, as an example, though, this is kind of interesting. So Lion King sold 11,900,000 copies on DVD. On Blu-ray, Lion King has only sold 3,608,000. Why are you barking at me? Do you want another cookie? 3,680,000. That is okay. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna give you your kale treat. That's what you get, buddy. He gets a kale treat. Okay, you can have a kale treat. That's what you get. And you have to stop barking at me. He really just wants me to come out and play is what he wants, which I do. You can have one more kale treat. I don't even kale, and there you go, bud. All right. So that's why. And that's why when you see the physical media plummeting, you see how much money is being lost, how much money the studios aren't making anymore, because that's the world is just a different place. Uh-oh. I didn't give anything to Tallulah. Now she's here too. You got to show equality to the dogs. One dog can't have one thing, and another dog can't have that. Come on, you got to. No, Gilbert. No. You get 2 treats. That's what you get. That's all you get. You don't get more than 2. You don't get treats all day long. Anyway, now I'm distracted. So, but yeah, that probably answers a little bit of what you're looking at. So in the heyday of Finding Nemo and Lion King, you're looking at almost $1 billion of home video revenue. That has plummeted. I mean, down to you're in the doldrums now, and it's going to only plummet even further. And that's why, unfortunately, physical media and special features are all going away. Stubble McShave says, I like the 1 hour special features doc of Star Wars Episode 1. I think it's called The Beginning. That is a great documentary. Again, in the heyday of DVD documentaries, and certainly Lucasfilm had the money to spend. That is a fantastic documentary, and I highly recommend it if you have not seen it. But again, those documentaries, it's just who's going to make them, and are they going to go away? Roberto Suarez is here. Roberto Suarez says, may I suggest a name for your weekly Cool Awards? Playing off the PGS initials, how about the Piggies? Are we going to have weekly Cool Awards? Oh, did I say that? We should have a weekly Cool Award. The Piggies, you know what, Roberto? As much as I like your first name, Roberto Suarez, I like that a lot, but I don't think I can call the PGS the Piggy Awards. I think it'd have to be the Singularity Awards, the weekly singular. You know what? If we're gonna have the Cool Awards, let's call it the Weekly Singularity. How about that? I so decree. I have decreed the Weekly Singularity. And to be honest, what's in the running is that omnibus. We shall see. A letter comes. This letter comes from Crosstalk. Greetings, Rob. Oh, Gilbert. Greetings, Rob, from the Great White North again, up here in Edmonton. I had to write in again after watching episode 279 and hearing you mention Emil Zacharias and the film that you want to make, and having Richard E. Grant playing this character. If it's the property I am thinking of, then I am in 100% agreement that he would make a great version of this evangelical preacher. Yes, it's what you're thinking of. All I know is the target is hard to kill, but the pay is hard to pass up, and might need some help with this job. I won't give any more away, as I would love to see this on a screen of any kind, big or small. Well, sir, you, Crosstalk, know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes, I've wanted to make this movie since I read the book in the late 80s. One of the first things I did when I moved to California was hook up the author with Harvey Bernard, the producer of the Omen movies. Nothing ever came of it, but he wanted to make it. And after I made Free Enterprise, it was even announced in Variety that it was going to be my second film. But you know what? I've wanted to make this movie for a long time, for 32 years. And I'm going to go full bore toward making this movie. And it's not cheap. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get it done. But my two things in life that I want to do now is I want to redo Free Enterprise. I want to buy the negative back, or at least figure out a way to get my hands on the negative and do a new version of the film in 4K and a whole new cut of the movie, the Final Frontier cut. That'll be the end-all, be-all cut of Free Enterprise, and then I want to move on and make other movies. But yes, this movie that I want, actually, the cast, I'll tell you what my cast is, my dream cast for this movie. I want Richard E. Grant to play Emil Zacharias, and I want Liam Neeson to play the lead, and I want Michelle Pfeiffer to play the main female character. There are a lot of other characters in the story, but that's my if I could have my dream cast, Liam Neeson, Richard E. Grant, and Michelle Pfeiffer would be who I would really want to be in this film. It's a tough movie to get made, but I think now, after there's been a lot of other things that have made the subject matter a lot more palatable, certain TV shows that were based on books that are one of my favorite comic writers and novelists wrote. There's a lot of things out there that make this project more desirable. So yes, I'm glad you want to see the project. And by the way, I have a screenplay for it. Yes, I do. The screenplay exists. I did not write it. The author of the novel wrote it, and we will be working on, I will be seeing him. He's coming to a screening of Tango Shalom, the first screening of Tango Shalom, and we will be discussing how we are going to move forward. Anyway, damn the resonance cannons and full speed ahead. My thought for this letter has come on the tail of the success of Joker and the failures of Terminator and Charlie's Angels. There seems to be a narrative that has been pushed like a looming cloud over the reasons of the success of Joker and the failure of the previously mentioned films. I preface this by saying I'm an Elizabeth Banks fan. She is funny, talented, and I largely enjoy the film she's in. She also just got signed to co-write and direct The Invisible Woman for Universal, not to be confused with the Invisible Woman of the Fantastic Four. But the idea that the problem with the failure of female-led action or franchise films is because of men seems to be reaching for something that isn't there. Are there toxic fans? Sure, toxic. That word is starting to lose its meaning as it's been tossed around so much, a lot like the word woke, which I also think is meaningless at this point. Toxic people exist everywhere in life. Are there male fans that pick apart properties because there are women in it? Sure. I'm willing to entertain that possibility, but you have to reason that the opposite can be true. Are there women that pick apart properties simply because they have men in them? But let's be honest. These people are so minor in the demographic population, there's no way they can determine what is successful or not at the box office. You're absolutely right about that. This needs to stop. This idea that it's X group's fault or Y group's fault that their film didn't succeed. Sometimes it's a product of the time that a film doesn't land or connect with the general audience. Look at films like Blade Runner, Dune, 2001, or even Metropolis. They didn't connect with the audiences at the time they were made. I think because the writers and creators of these films and or books were so forward thinking in the medium they chose, sci-fi in this case, that people didn't understand the allegory, or rather didn't take the time to actually dissect what they had watched and chalked up to being boring or heady. Here's my point. I don't put Dark Fate or Charlie's Angels anywhere near the same category as those other films I mentioned. I'm not equating the reason of disconnect for the films I mentioned as the reason they weren't box office successful at the box office. It's the same reason as why Dark Fate or Angels weren't successful. I think maybe, perhaps, just maybe the reason Dark Fate wasn't good is because it isn't a good Terminator film. It could be a completely passable action movie of its own accord, if not saddled with a previous IP legacy. Tying it to that universe is what anchored it to the bottom of the ocean, in my opinion. It's not worse than the last Fast and Furious movie with a submarine in it. That movie is horrible, in my opinion. I loathe it. Fast 7, I can't even remember the name of it. Charlize Theron is in it. Actually, it's Fate of the Furious. It's Fast 8. But grounding it in previously established lore is what leashed it to comparing it to the first two, which are great action movies. Charlie's Angels I haven't seen, but I'll tell you why I didn't see it. Hint, it's not because I have a flesh flute. It's because, in all honesty, it didn't look fun. The trailers seemed to want to have a lighthearted appeal like the 2000 reboot and its successor, but it looked like they grounded it more in reality. Not a Jason Bourne kind of reality, but still a sort of barely exaggerated real world. I like the reboot Angels because they were over-the-top, ridiculous, fun action movies. You can see the wire work and cheesy lines and dialogue, but they had fun with it. No one can tell me that Bill Murray didn't have fun or that Sam Rockwell didn't have fun being the bad guy in that movie. Sam's amazing. All the ladies in that film also look like they were having a blast. So rather than stay with the stylized, over-the-top humor and action, they wanted it to feel more real. At least that is what it seemed to me. And it killed it for me. I didn't want a forced and almost dour version of this property. Here's the conclusion. Perhaps Dark Fate and Angels failed simply because they just weren't that good. To me, and I'm sure to you, Rob, it all goes back to the fundamentals of a good story. The writing. If you don't have a good story to tell, then why the hell are you telling it? Not just that, but why would you spend a gargantuan amount of money to tell a story that isn't good? And if your story isn't that good, at least make it a guilty pleasure. How do you make a successful guilty pleasure? You make it fun. Anyway, I'm sure you have a ton of letters to get through, so I'll end with this. Blaming anyone without taking personal responsibility, at least in part, for your failures is a dangerous and defeating mindset. Admit when you weren't that good or messed up and work to make sure you do better next time. That's all anyone can ask of themselves or others. So here's to hoping the next ones are better. Much love from the North. Take off, hosers. That's a great letter. Great letter, Crosstalk. I agree with you. You know, also, what we've seen, people are now talking about how Terminator 2 wasn't successful, or Terminator I mean, pardon me, Terminator Dark Fate wasn't successful, or Charlie's Angels. Remember, we had Men in Black International over the summer that didn't do well either. And look, these movies are all very well made. They're made by studios with lots of money, and it's not the production. It's just that a lot of these movies, what people forget is franchises are properties of the time that they came out. And I think the Terminator franchise, it's not like it's this incredibly deep philosophical franchise. They're hey, no fate but what we make. I get it. You know, you could tell whole college philosophy courses what to do with themselves, talking about no fate but what we make. So, you know what? I'm actually going to take a phone call live on the air. Hang on. Steve, hey, how you doing? This is, by the way, you're live on the air. This is Steve Yeaman, the sound designer of Tango Shalom. Steve, you know what I just did? I want you to know that I put your sound design credit in the opening credits of the movie today.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So you are in the opening credits. So do you have good?
Thank you.
Do you have good news for me?
Well, I'm just rendering out the print master for you. Because this is kind of a temp mix for notes.
Right.
Do you need a 5.1 or you just want the LTRT?
Whatever is easiest for you. I would take both, or one or the other, whatever's easiest.
Well, I have to do the 5.1 anyway to make the LTRT.
Oh, then just give me the 5.1. That'd be great.
Okay, so you can watch it on a digital. You should watch it on the LTRT because that's where most people are going to see it.
Right.
Or you can watch it both. Whenever I go to the print master, I always find the devil's in the details.
Right.
Whenever you do the print master, so I'm glad I did this because there's certainly some things I need to change technically.
Well,
artistically, just technical stuff. That stupid little things like a limiter was not not put onto a track or whatever.
Right.
Just stupid little things. But there are some issues that I need to take care of. But I think it's important for us to get to it so we can get to notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, whatever you can send me. I mean, because what I would do with the 5.1 is I would actually burn it to a Blu-ray and listen to it on my surround sound system.
But that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I can listen.
I'll send you both files.
Yeah, send me both files. Because I would listen to it both on headphones, the LTRT with studio headphones, and then I would listen to 5.1 on my.
I always say never listen to your mixes on headphones.
Well, then I won't. I'll play them loud.
Yeah, just play it in your home. Yeah, see, headphones are very deceiving. Unless, in fact, every kind of headphones is different. I've done headphone mixes before because a lot of people are starting to use them, but this was not mixed for headphones.
Right, of course. All right, well then I'll listen to them on full-on speakers then. So send me both mixes.
Yeah, I'll send you both. That's cool, man. It's exciting. It's a really fun movie, man.
Dude, I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to hear what you've done.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of work went into the dialogue, I'll tell you. You have no idea. Still, every time I watch it, there's another dialogue line that I have to fix.
Yeah.
I'm going, especially in the print master, I'm going, I'll get to that later. I've made some notes on. The dialogue is mostly where most of the work is always needed anyway. Yeah.
Well, I'm very excited. Send it on over.
Okay, it'll be coming to you.
I'm so excited, Steve. And by the way, your name looks really cool in neon, sort of a neon purple pink in the opening credits.
Hey, that's my favorite color.
I did not. Well, you're gonna like the open. I'll send you a screen grab of the opening credit for you.
Oh, cool, man.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. You deserve it. You earned it.
Yeah, we worked 5 weeks with Gabe.
I know, right?
Every single day. I mean, dude, I had to take a couple days off, but it was brutal, dude.
I know.
But it's really good because the Lifetime movies that I do, a lot of them I have to do really quickly because they need to get them out. They need to get them out. And the more when you spend time on a mix, you really can really make it good.
Right.
And when you hammer stuff out in a mix really quick, doing this with Gabe was really, really a great way to do it.
So would you say?
It took us a long time.
Would you say that this is the Tango Shalom is the best mix you've ever done for a feature film?
I won't know until I see the print master, until I see it in the theater. Gabe's African Gothic was one so far the best I've seen.
Okay.
I mean, African Gothic when we did at the Chinese Man Theater was absolutely stunning. It even surprised the crap out of me. I was like, wow, yeah.
Well, I think this is more complex. We got music and dancing.
Way more complex. This has got so many parts. I noticed on reel 5 or reel 6, some of the balances between the TV and coming back into the room. I have to tweak that a little bit better. There's little things like that I see that need to be handled.
Well, I can't wait to hear it, man.
That's why I say I work really good with notes. So I told Gabe, accurate time code right down to the time code number.
Yep.
Because that tells me exactly what needs to be fixed, and I'll look at it and I'll be able to see what it is that you guys mean.
I'm going to send him exactly the version I sent you. Everything will be exactly the same. The time code number.
Be the same.
All
exactly
the same.
The same.
It'll be the thing I made you the file of. He'll have that file too.
Here's what I want to ask you.
Yes.
You know, I don't know why and what or when, but some of the dialogue that you put in the track, would you say that it's absolutely guaranteed to be some of those lines are in sync? Because some of them, for using that as a guide track, some of them look off, and I don't know if I should trust it.
I don't know, because some of that stuff we flew in. Those are things from other takes. So I don't necessarily think you should trust it entirely.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. Yeah. It'd be nice to have the next time whenever you do anything like this. It's always good to have the originals, as shitty as it is, just so I can use it as a sync reference.
Right. So
that it lays in with the original clip. But then again, I've seen DIs put in the dialogue and have it out of sync. So
yeah. Well, listen, I look forward to it, man. I can't wait to hear it.
Okay, yeah, keep an eye out for the sync, because I've been dealing with that through the whole entire film.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you guys can get tired. We've nailed it in, I think, pretty close.
I can't wait.
Okay, man. I'm going to be sending that to you right away.
I'm very excited.
Okay, man.
All right.
We'll see you.
See you, Steve. Well, okay. The only reason I took that call, let me tell you what that call was. That was the sound designer for Tango Shalom. Gabe Bologna and the director and him and Steve Yeaman have been working for the last 5 weeks finalizing what's called a premix. So the premix is basically, it's a mix of the film that we'll listen to, and then we make all of our notes before the final mix. So what I have to do is write down all my notes, because that's why they're sending it to me, and then Gabe will do his notes, and then we put our notes together, and then we go into a final mix. I have purposefully I've been working with them, sending them things, and when I got the music and sending all that, I haven't heard it. I've not heard anything that they've done. So tonight, I am getting the premix for Tango Shalom, a movie I've worked on for 3.5 years. I'm going to burn a Blu-ray in 5.1. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to crank up the volume and listen to it. Hopefully, I can bask in the gloriousness of it. Won't be perfect, as you heard, but that is Steve Yeaman, sound designer for Tango Shalom. You just heard an actual phone call. I don't know how it sounded. I don't know if you could hear what he was saying, but let me just tell you, my heart is beating. I am so excited. It's for me, it's only 3.5 years of work. It's even more for everybody else. Steve's been working on this movie since last May. He had to record new dialogue. They've changed all kinds of things. They've added stuff. Oh, it's going to be, I can't wait. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. You just got a glimpse of what it's like to work on a feature film at the low budget arena. Now, what he's going to do now is send me, so he's sending me what he just said. So you guys know, we didn't mix this in anything but 5.1 because it's an indie movie. We didn't mix it in 7.1 or 9.1 or Atmos. The film has been mixed in 5.1. And for those of you who have home video, you know what 5.1 means. You have a front center channel where the dialogue comes out of. You have left and right, front, left, and right channels. You have left and right rear surrounds, and you have the low frequency or the subwoofer channel. That's what 5.1 is. And LTRT is left and right stereo pairs. So he's sending me 2 different mixes of the film. He's sending me the 5.1 mix, and he's also sending me the 2-channel stereo mix. Now, I am going to listen. I'm going to listen to it on my headphones. I have studio headphones, and I understand what he means, because what he's talking about is there are different mixes that are done for movies, just like there's a TV mix. He doesn't want me to listen to it on headphones because it's so precise, and I'm going to hear things that I'm going to bump on. but I'm going to listen to it on my headphones anyway. Unfortunately, not my good headphones, because as you all know, Gilbert did this to my studio headphones, and I had to order a new pair, and they have not arrived yet. But anyway, that was some exciting filmmaking right there. You guys are privy to it. How many other YouTubers get a call from their sound designer telling you that the sound design is on its way? Come on, this has got to be a first for YouTube, an actual phone call. I wasn't going to take it, but there you go. It might have been boring, but let me tell you, for me, I am damn excited. Damn excited. I think I'll just keep on talking until it's going to take him a while to send them to me. So the Richard is here. The Richard says, aloha. Mom got us each VHS copies of Forbidden Planet in the early 2000s, $26 each. Featured a great doc, Watch the Skies, Science Fiction, the 50s, and Us. By the way, that is a great documentary. It's not just on Forbidden Planet. I've seen it on other things. It's a really great, I think it was done, I want to say it was done for maybe American Movie Classics. Great documentary. The Richard, you are correct. Oh, look who's here. Victory Unlimited Show is here, ladies and gentlemen. Victory Unlimited Show. I missed you, Victory Unlimited Show. Victory Unlimited Show says, big budget blockbusters, cable content, and multiple streaming services totally overshadow most great low budget films. Is marketing to smaller niche audiences the future of indie film success? Narrow casting versus broadcasting? You know what? Let me read that again. And this is a great question. You know, I've already done the Victory Unlimited Show thing. So Victory Unlimited Show is a longtime supporter of the channel, asks a very good question. He says, big budget blockbusters, cable content, and multiple streaming services totally overshadow most great low budget films. Is marketing to smaller niche audiences the future of indie film success? Narrow casting versus broadcasting? Well, that is an incredibly interesting and insightful question you have asked. So here's the problem with it's not really a problem, but with any media, you always have, it's like a popularity contest. You have movies like Avengers Endgame. You have movies like Frozen 2. Come on, man. I already gave you stuff to eat. The big movies, the movies that are big box office draws, are always going to be the movies that have the widest, broadest appeal. And as you move into the indie film world, independent movies are never going to have that broad of appeal. So movie theaters, like streaming services, everybody concentrates on what is going to bring in the best. I'll come play with you after I'm done. Have the biggest audiences. And so indie films, like I talked a lot about, although somebody said they hated this movie, I talked a lot about Elizabeth and I watching Booksmart. I thought Booksmart was a wonderful movie. A new voice in Olivia Wilde, a new director, and yet it just didn't do very well. It did well in the festival circuit, and it was bought for a lot of money for what an independent movie usually costs. And yet when it came out, it didn't find its audience, which I don't understand why it didn't. If I was a teenage girl, I would find the movie, as a middle-aged guy, I found the film quite uplifting. And there's a twist early on in the movie that I thought was unique. And I'm like, oh, you think it's one movie, and then it turns into something. The characters that you're following think the world is one way, and then they realize it's not. The world that they've been living in, their belief system is shaken. I wouldn't say to their core, but shaken. And the rest of the movie is them coming to terms with this realization. I thought it was a great little movie, but it didn't make any money. And I think the future of film, independent distribution, is probably definitely has something to do with narrow casting. Because I'll tell you, John Schnepp, the late great John Schnepp, made his documentary, The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened? And he basically distributed the film himself. And the thing that killed his self-distribution of the movie was piracy. People from our own community, our fan community, ripped him off because a lot of people don't believe in paying for data. You know, why should they? But, you know, John Schnepp put in 3 years of his life and a lot of money into this labor of love that he had. I mean, hell, he went to England and interviewed Tim Burton. And if there was a way to guarantee that downloadable video could be protected, that it wouldn't be, that it wouldn't be uploaded to the Pirate Bay. I think that definitely is the future of filmmaking. It's just there's so many different ways to download movies and things like that. But I do think ultimately that if you want to make, look, I talked about how I like Davey504 has become one of my favorite YouTubers. He has a he's closing in on 5 million followers. If I ended up having that many followers, I could absolutely figure out a way to finance movies. If I knew that, say, of my followers, if I had, say, 100,000, maybe no more than that, let's say I had 1 million people, I had 1 million followers, and I knew that my 1 million followers would pay $9.99 or $14.99. Well, yep. Little crashing around here. If I knew, Gilbert, that's just somebody visiting. It's just somebody here. If I knew, it's Elizabeth. Would you like to say hello? Come and say hello on the camera. How about from a distance? Say hello to everybody. Oh, she has a client. That's why there's barking. Oh, well, Elizabeth says hello to all of you. Come on, Gilbert. Don't do that. So if you were able to do that, and I was able to guarantee that I could get from direct downloads, say $14 million from 1 million of my subscribers, then I could go to a finance company and say, look, I want to make a $5 million horror film, a $5 million genre movie. If I could guarantee, and I had the analytics to prove it, if I could borrow the money, or I could get private investors to give me that money. And what you want to do, I've said this before, you want to make sure that your investors get a 30% return at least. That's what you're looking for. The magic number, at least for me, is if someone invests money, you want the magic number to be 30%. So, you know, if you borrow $1 million, you want to be able to give back $1,300,000. That's basically what you're looking to do. So with direct download or direct access, and you put up your movie and you know that of your subscribers, you could get 1 million people to give you $14.95 or even give you $9.95, then you could make your film and you have an audience. And like what I would love to do is do just like that. There have been times when I've looked for film funds and I've come very close to raising that kind of money. But the reason that streaming services, at least as far as independent movies are concerned, is if you have an independent movie that has had some kind of a breakthrough, that has some kind of something that makes it marketable. Say you make a movie for $3 million, right? And it does really well in the festival circuit, and Booksmart sold for a lot of money. I don't know exactly how much money it sold for. Well, let's find out. Booksmart film sales. I'll find out and see if it doesn't say. It doesn't say. Let me see. Financial information. The numbers. Oh, this is interesting. Let's see what it says. So Booksmart. It doesn't say how much it was produced for, but here, this is sort of interesting. So Booksmart made $22,680,000 in the theaters, and internationally it made 1.7. So it almost made $25 million worldwide, and the domestic video sales are just shy of $1 million. Let's see if it says full. It doesn't say how much it cost, but I would imagine it didn't cost like over, I don't know, maybe it was a $5 million movie or even more than that. I'm not sure. But what you'd want to be able to do is a streaming service then purchases all the rights, buys all the rights, and they might give you what the movie cost plus 30% or even more. Maybe they'll give you maybe a $5 million movie. You can sell it to a streaming service for $8 million if it does well at the festivals. Now you can choose to take that money. Everybody gets paid back. You line your pockets. You make a decent sum. Now you're not going to get rich. You're not going to be buying a $50 million mansion in Bel Air or anything like that. But you've made your film. It showed a return to your investor. You've made money and put it in your pocket. And you hope then you can go to your investor and borrow more. So selling a movie to a streaming service, an indie film, the reason it's so desirable is there isn't the pressure to perform at the box office. Now, they thought Booksmart was going to be a lot more successful than it was. But I would say that Booksmart Yeah, $25 million is nothing to shake a stick at for what that movie cost to make. I know they thought they were going to make more because I think it sold. Let's see what it sold. I'm trying to find what it sold for. Book Smart sold for how much? I'm hoping that it was acquired. Well, heck, you know what? Look what I found. I found an article. Box office failure of Olivia Wilde's Booksmart is a sadly predictable tragedy. So again, for those of you who came in late, I'm answering Victory Unlimited Show's question, which is very astute. He asks, streaming services totally overshadow most great low-budget films. Is marketing to smaller niche audiences the future of indie film success, or is narrow casting versus broadcasting the future? Well, let's delve into this. This is from Scott Mendelson. This article was written on May 27th of this year. Despite the best efforts of film Twitter, the film critic community, and United Artists Releasing's marketing departments, a movie like Annapurna's Booksmart didn't have much of a chance in 2019. Sure, the release date wasn't terrific. Lots of older teens were more likely to see Aladdin and John Wick 3, but it's not like there's a current scenario where, absent a long and protracted Oscar season run, this one gets anywhere near the $49 million domestic gross of Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird. This isn't 2009, and Booksmart wasn't a universal programmer. The good news is Olivia Wilde's comedy may be the kind of movie that goes down swinging, but results in its filmmakers and cast going on to do other high-profile or studio work. For example, Short Term 12, a sweeping emotional look at the foster care system, earned rave reviews and a cult following in 2013. It also earned a whopping $1,013 in domestic grosses 6 summers ago. That said, its director, Destin Daniel Cretton, just signed up to direct Marvel's Shang-Chi, and its cast, including Brie Larson, Lakeith Stanfield, Caitlin Dever, Rami Malek, and Stephanie Beatriz, has done all right. That's just one example of a cult favorite that has become something of a modern equivalent to St. Elmo's Fire or School Ties. That's not to say it's not a big deal that Booksmart earned just $8.6 million in its Friday to Monday debut this past Memorial Day weekend. It's yet another example of audiences getting the very thing they claim Hollywood won't give them and looking the other way. Yes, this is a pet peeve, and yes, Hollywood is to blame for taking so long to expand their demographic horizons that they let Netflix, Hulu, cable TV, and VOD fill in the gaps amongst those who don't want to see tentpoles. But if you want movies like Booksmart, intelligent, funny, progressive genre flicks that revolve around girls and women to be produced for theaters, you have to see them in theaters. We know what's going on here. It's not that audiences are choosing to see Aladdin, John Wick 3, or Avengers Endgame over Booksmart. It's that the audiences who have no interest in or who have already seen those tentpoles or event movies are staying home instead of seeking out a different kind of movie. The general movie-going audience that once saw both big movies and the smaller movies, relatively speaking, has now turned to various at-home options, Netflix, cable, VOD, etc., for their filmed entertainment needs. They see the biggest stuff in theaters, and everything else either waits for post-theatrical or gets ignored in favor of the next Netflix binge. We've seen this over the last 4 years as the emergence of Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon as major forces for quality adult skewing character-driven television shows, along with niche and often more progressive fantasy television on cable and streaming, has completely filled the vacuum that Hollywood left open in order to dedicate itself almost exclusively to 4-quadrant global franchise fare. By the time Hollywood realized that The Avengers was a fluke and tried to get back to making more movies and more diverse genre fare alongside the tentpoles, it was too late, and the general audience had acclimated itself to watching what they wanted to watch on their HD TVs and or laptops. That's not to say that streaming services are the villains, although one day at a time should teach you that Netflix is not your friend. or that audiences can be blamed for preferring to watch a movie at home for little to no money on a decent sound system and a decent HD TV either, right when it releases on streaming or when it debuts post-theatrical 80 to 120 days after theaters. But when you don't see the kinds of movies you want Hollywood to make, when those movies play in theaters, you can't blame Hollywood for no longer making those kinds of movies for theaters. When you ignore Only the Brave or All the Money in the World, you're partially to blame when Sony greenlights Jason Reitman's Ghostbusters 3. Well, here, let me go on. I'll read one more thing. A white male director can make a well-reviewed indie flop and still get a blockbuster. Colin Trevorrow's Safety Not Guaranteed earned a whopping $4 million in the summer of 2012, but strong reviews and fans like Steven Spielberg and Brad Bird were enough to get Trevorrow the job helming Jurassic World. Jordan Vaught Roberts' solid Kings of Summer earned $1.3 million for CBS Films in summer 2013, but he still got to make Kong Skull Island for Warner Brothers and Legendary. Aubrey Plaza's terrific The To-Do List earned $3.5 million domestic for CBS Films, yet writer-director Maggie Carey has directed 20 episodes of TV since then. For what it's worth, Fast Colors' Julia Hart will direct Stargirl for Disney+. Folks behind Booksmart will survive. The rave reviews and likely strong word of mouth, an A from CinemaScore from women aged 17 to 34, will likely make it a generational cult classic. History shows that its relative failure won't doom others of its ilk from getting made, but unless you really don't care about movies of its ilk no longer playing in wide theatrical release, you still owe it to yourself to check it out over the next week or so. If you want to change the film's narrative, it has to be in the next 5 days so it can get that miraculous second weekend hold, because a movie as good as Booksmart shouldn't have to merely settle for survival. Now, I think that is incredibly interesting. Unfortunately, independent movies now are harder than ever to get into theaters. You just saw me take a phone call about Tango Shalom. I would love Tango Shalom to play in theaters. It has no stars in it. It is populated pretty much by New York character actors. Renee Taylor is in the movie, who played Fran Drescher's mom on The Nanny. She's in the new movie How to Be a Latin Lover. Well, it's new on Netflix. She's in that movie and she's hysterical. Lainey Kazan, who was in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Lainey Kazan's been in movies. She was in Paul Bartel's Lust in the Dust. She's in the movie. The late Joseph Bologna, Academy Award nominated screenwriter and one of the co-stars of Tango Shalom, who starred in movies like Blame It on Rio and co-starred in My Favorite Year with Peter O'Toole. He also co-wrote the screenplay and died during the post-production of this film. So while it has a pretty great pedigree and group of actors in it, it's not exactly the kind of movie that kids are going to be rushing out for. People have asked me and they've said, Rob, what's Tango Shalom about? And I've said, well, it's an indie Jewish spiritual quest family dance comedy fable. And they look at me with a blank expression, but that's kind of what it is. It's a delightful, low budget indie comedy that was shot on the streets of New York that also stars, well, I have to say, it stars Karina Smirnoff, who was on Dancing with the Stars. She's the co-lead of the movie, and she was on Dancing with the Stars for 13 seasons. And first of all, she's smoking hot, and she's delightful in the film. It's her debut, it's her film debut, and she's great. Now, if you're a Dancing with the Stars fan, you might run out and see Tango Shalom to see her first performance in a movie, but it's a movie that is designed, it's low-budget indie. For somebody to put a movie like Tango Shalom in the theaters, they have to put a lot of money behind it. And even I would say, as much as I think the film is delightful, I don't want to put it in theaters because it's not the kind of movie, even if it has the greatest marketing campaign in the world, it's not the kind of movie that you're going to get people to turn out. If you can't get the youth of America to turn out for a movie like Booksmart, which speaks directly to them and has a lot to say about today's world. And it's a delightful film with two great central performances and Olivia Wilde crushed directing the film. If you can't get people to come out for that, I mean, independent films are tough. You think about companies like Amazon making Manchester by the Sea, another incredible movie. Thank God that came out from Amazon. But back to Victory Unlimited's question, If I knew that movies couldn't be so easily pirated, I think delivering independent films direct to your consumer would be great. If there was a way that I could guarantee that my movies weren't going to get pirated, piracy is one of the biggest problems facing certainly low budget genre movies. I mean, and there's this idea, people think, one, they're getting away with something. I mean, pirating movies and pirating music, but pirating movies is a crime that people gleefully admit that they do. And when it comes to making low budget indie fare, it just hurts the low budget filmmakers whose films get pirated. They don't make any money theatrically. They don't make any money on physical media. And when they don't do that, it's harder to get money to streaming services to buy them. And then the independent filmmaker has a hard time getting his next film off the ground or getting her next film off the ground. And it's tough. So I would love to be able to go directly to the consumer. I mean, this channel, the Burnettwork, has almost, I think we're at 15,500 subscribers. I've built that over a year. My dream in life would be to have enough subscribers where I could make movies. And what I would like to do is make compelling, low-budget genre fare. Both, I mean, I would use examples. I don't want to make a movie just like John Carpenter's They Live, but if I could make movies like They Live and Prince of Darkness, which are movies that were basically made for $3 million, of course, back in 87 and 88, but sell them directly to the consumer and know that for the $3 million that I spent on the film, I might be able to get a return of $4 million or even $5 million, I would spend the rest of my days making those kinds of movies. Sure, one episode of Star Trek Discovery costs 4 times as much as the kind of movies I'm talking about making. But I would rather make those movies, and if I could sell them directly to the consumer, it would be amazing. It would be amazing to be able to do that. I don't even know if anyone's still watching this stream after that, but yes, to answer your question, yes. And by the way, thank you for your very generous ongoing support of the channel. and by the way, again, if you like these chats, smash that like button, subscribe. Advanced Junior says, hey, Rob, exciting or awesome phone call. Great news. We could hear the whole conversation clearly. Enjoy that sweet audio, bro. I can tell you're excited. I cannot convey how excited I am to hear this audio, because for 3.5 years, I did a whole temp 5.1 surround mix and I'm not a sound designer. Normally a picture editor doesn't do that. But since I'm the only editor, there was no assistant editor, there was nobody else. And I know one thing I've learned, when you show a movie to anybody, it has to feel, here's another thing about the Snyder Cut. It has to feel finished. You know, the only way you can get an honest reaction from people, especially if you want them to react to your cut of the movie, it has to feel finished. And when you're showing it to an audience that you're expecting, especially with a low-budget comedy like ours is, a family comedy, a family dance comedy fable, in fact, you have to make it look as done as possible. As a matter of fact, before I started on the show, I actually dropped in some final graphics that I had, 3D rendered graphics from Ben Alpe, whose a short film hashtag was burning up the festival's screenings. Go find Ben Alpe on Facebook and tell him I sent you, because hashtag's really good. It stars Gigi Edgley from Farscape fame. And Advanced Junior sent me yet another super chat. So thank you very much. But yeah, I mean it's very exciting. I'm very excited about this movie. I worked on it for a very, 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 very long time. And the funny thing is I know I know most of the people that I know are going to be like, yeah, I saw your movie. It was good. You know, my mom will love it though. Adam Blue is here. Adam Blue says, Rob, the recent change in A New Hope on Disney Plus has reignited the fan backlash to George Lucas's tinkering of the original trilogy. McClunky. By the way, I just ordered a McClunky t-shirt off the digitalbits.com, the Digital Bits Bill Hunt's website. He just put up a new store on TeePublic, and he's got like one of my favorite shirts. It's Méliès, like George Méliès's Trip to the Moon. Méliès shot first. Great stuff. So go look that up. But he made a McClunky t-shirt, and I had to buy it. The recent change in A New Hope on Disney Plus has reignited the fan backlash to George Lucas's tinkering of the original trilogy. I'd like to offer my perspective on this, as I very much enjoyed your takeaway on first seeing A New Hope, how you read and listened to Empire before it came out, and on how Return of the Jedi was a massive disappointment for you. Okay. I was either 11 or 12 in 1994 when I first realized I loved Star Wars. I just wanted some well-done space battles. Return of the Jedi was my favorite because it had the best space combat, and in my opinion has held that title since Rogue One. Man, I agree with you. The battle in Rogue One, best Star Wars battle by far. This is what Star Wars is about, first being realized in A New Hope. But as I got deeper into the trilogy, I realized I love everything about Star Wars. So do I, by the way. Shortly after getting way into Star Wars, George Lucas announced the special edition. When I saw a photo in a magazine of Jabba the Hutt in A New Hope, my mind went crazy. I would then see Mos Eisley further realized with added in spaceships, denizens, and numerous other effects that made the world feel more alive. This concept inspired me to no end. Luckily, at the same time, Star Wars figures are being released and my dreams were further coming true. Instead of just buying micro machines, now I get modern figures. Remember the bodybuilder Luke? At that time, special edition bodybuilder Luke. And while my parents bought me tons of Star Wars figures, I wasn't able to get all the big expensive stuff all the time. However, I used cardboard and would build in-scale models of the Snowspeeder, the Millennium Falcon, and even Mos Eisley. I then littered my replica Mos Eisley with my Star Wars figures. Then I used a camcorder my parents handed down to me, and I filmed sweeping shots of the spaceport with my other hand pulling strings attached to the cardboard vehicles I created. That's awesome. My goal was to recreate this alive and vibrant alien city. I think because I was used to the groundbreaking special effects of movies such as T2 and Jurassic Park, I instantly connected with George's idea to fully realize his creation. I was doing that myself, taking my playing with action figures game up a notch, making it seem like I'm telling a story within my own movie studio. If I was to continue playing with my action figures, I needed the materials around me to convince me that I'm doing so. You and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. For most kids at this age, this is when the imagination becomes bigger than the act of playing, and it's hard to play with toys. Today, I tend to pose my action figures and take pictures, but playing with them doesn't seem practical for my imagination anymore. Something I wish I didn't grow out of. You know what, though? I agree with you. That is you just made a very astute point. Like, I used to spend hours creating scenarios and playing out. Like, I would come up with a story. It would take me 3 or 4 hours to play out the whole story, and I'd have to do it all. Sometimes I would go around my whole house and set up different planets or places I knew I was going to go to, and then play that scenario out. I could never do that today. My first girlfriend, Jennifer Epstein, now Jennifer Washburn, she would always used to say to me, I want to come over and watch you. She would say, watch you have a battle. Because I would tell her how to play. She's like, I can't do it in front of anybody. I can't do voices, and it drove her crazy. But I'm like, by that time I was like 13. I'm like, I couldn't do it. But you're right. Like, look, I'll tell you. I love Space 1999 Eagles. You know, these product enterprises, now 1612 is putting out Eagles again, and you can't not play with them. Like, I literally, but now I've got like 2 teenage girls and Elizabeth in his house, and I can't be caught dead actually playing with my Eagles. And I have a lot of Eagles, and if I can't do it. I can't do it in front of everybody, and I've got too much to do. But I understand exactly what you mean. But other than furthering my imagination with my own Star Wars world at home, seeing George Lucas make changes to his 3 Star Wars films also made me appreciate the world building and storytelling aspect that George saw as a priority. Greedo shooting first doesn't sell more toys, but does fulfill George's need to share how he wants the story to be told. If Disney changed that scene, that's one thing, but the creator himself doing it has deeper meaning. It's like, as a parent, as my kids grow, I too learn more about how I should be raising them, and sometimes I have to change my point of view. But at the same time, there are those that were just so used to the movie telling a story one way that it is hard to grasp a new telling. I get that. The vitriol, I do not. I will add that when I first saw the new scene of Greedo shooting first, the effect used to achieve it looked bad. That's the first impression everyone gets, and everyone is more focused on the visuals being played out over the story implications. If Han already owed Jabba money and he's just killing whoever is trying to get the money back, that is not a good characteristic for a hero. I like the idea of Han trying to survive his irresponsibility with others' trust. It's more of him being a jaded goofball, which I can relate to, than having to be a badass. In Solo, we see Han shoot first when confronted with his mentor at the end. That scene made sense. Tobias was far too gone at that point, and Han knew what would happen. When he first met Han, he was willing to throw him to the wolves at Mimban. But knowing Han's character, if the positions were reversed, he wouldn't have called out a young man like that in front of the Empire. In my opinion, George Lucas's justification makes sense, but the way it's portrayed on screen admittedly looks horrible. I think that's why George went back to tweak it, but it still does not work. But I roll with it, just like I roll with Luke and gang being so excited after killing potentially millions with the destruction of the Death Star. Sure, it was justified, but the emotional toll should be akin to Amuro Ray after his battle with Zeon in Mobile Suit Gundam. You know what? When you start talking about Amuro Ray, that's a good one. I like that. You get to me. Shocked, depressed, and scared to fight again. But that gets into something else entirely. Anyway, I just wanted to be a singular voice in defending George Lucas's decision, even if I don't think it was portrayed properly to convey his intentions. But his explanation works for me, and this process of his to add and change things has only built upon the fantastic world building that we rarely see in motion pictures. Thanks for reading, Adam Blue. Well, Adam, that's a good letter. But I would like to offer a different perspective. As we get older, we change. Our values change. People get more conservative. And I think what happens is when you make a film and it's a product of its time, all filmmakers, I think, want to go back and change things, but they're not the same people anymore. And I don't necessarily know or think that it's correct to go back and make alterations to something that you made 20 years ago. In my mind, I had 20 years of watching Han Solo shoot first. And one of the things that made Han Solo the character he was when he says, "Yes, I'll bet you have." Boom. And it's the kind of thing where if George Lucas had a way to change it that felt natural and felt good and really added to the scene and made it better, I'd be okay. I'll buy that, but it's so poorly done, especially in the 77 or I don't know, the 97 version, the first special edition. It's so ham-fisted and it's so bad, just like adding McClunky. You know, it takes you out of the movie. It literally ruins the rest of the film because it's your introduction to the character. It's the first time you see the character of Han Solo do something on his own. You're learning something about him. I mean, that scene doesn't even necessarily have to be in Star Wars, but there's a reason it was put in the movie and not cut out because it says something about his character. And I also think that having Jabba the Hutt, like, I never liked having Jabba the Hutt be on Tatooine. Why would he be? Why would Jabba the Hutt be on Tatooine in the first place? And one of the things I really didn't like about Return of the Jedi is that we go back. I mean, I know they were going to go back to Tatooine. I know because it was written that way originally in Star Wars that Jabba is on Tatooine. But to me, I just thought that the things that they added in the special edition, they take away from the rest of the movie. And it seemed very haphazard. Now, I appreciate what you're saying about world building and things like that. Like, it's funny because as much as I'm disappointed, I've said Return of the Jedi was the most disappointing movie I've ever seen in my life. I think Return of the Jedi is also my favorite of the special editions because the editions add to the movie. Like the end when you see the different locations throughout the Star Wars universe we'd already seen celebrating. I don't like Anakin Skywalker, a young Anakin Skywalker being put into the scene at the end. I always liked it when it was Sebastian Shaw, Alec Guinness, and Yoda. I felt that was appropriate because having a young kid who basically was duped. I mean, I understand where they're going, but I didn't like that. But because you needed a kid. The only reason in my mind that Darth Vader could have ever become a Force ghost is he had to have lived that life. And I just didn't like the fact that you're seeing Anakin Skywalker as the Force ghost because it was better when you realized that a guy seeing a young Anakin Skywalker really bothered me. because first of all, Sebastian Shaw, the actor, who is the actor that's unmasked in Vader's costume at the end of Jedi, who was the original Anakin Force Ghost, was removed. Like his whole performance was removed, and to make it more consistent with the trilogy. But the point is that Darth Vader did age. He was not the same person that he was in Revenge of the Sith when he became Vader. So it made no sense to me. I was like, that is not a well done change. I didn't like it. I was pissed. It pissed me off. But anyway, and that's what I think. I think George Lucas's changes were based on changes in his own life that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And that's what I didn't like. And I thought, as far as Star Wars was concerned, for 20 years, I'd seen that movie over 100 times. The verisimilitude of that world was wonderful. But watching new technology that didn't exist when they made Star Wars, and including that technology, it lurched. All the verisimilitude that film had going for it was shattered by the addition of all of this CGI. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It doesn't work. And the fact that they keep going back and tweaking it proves it. The movie didn't need to be tweaked. It didn't need to be tweaked. I understand what George wanted to do, but the movie became the most successful movie of all time for a reason. Nobody was going, well, I really wish we didn't have so many model shots of the X-Wing and we could actually make the composites look better. I think part of what was so great about Star Wars was the compositions, was the things that we did see. But that's just me. But I do appreciate your point of view. And maybe that has something to do with we're a little different in terms of age. So maybe what I'm saying about perspective, maybe my perspective is wrong. Maybe you're right. I mean, if you grew up and didn't have a problem with that, and you feel that the special editions added to the world building, and as a kid that was basically making your own Star Wars movies, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't know, because in my world, Star Wars existed one way, and it meant so much to me. And I was, what was I? I was 30 years old when the special editions came out, and I had lived with Star Wars from the time I was 10, and Star Wars meant a great deal to me. I mean, and then to see somebody come in and change something that for 2/3 of my life I had loved, and they go in my mind, vandalize it. I don't care if it was the original creator or not. I never accepted it. I can't accept it. I still can't, even when they make changes. I can't believe they cut out Clive Revel as the Emperor in Empire Strikes Back. I mean, I get why they did it, but the Emperor, I love the Emperor in Empire. One of the things I was disappointed by in Return of the Jedi, I like Ian McDermott's performance, but he's basically Snow White villain. The thoughtful, the guy in Empire. Now you can't even see Clive Revel unless you have the original version of Empire, when he's quiet and contemplative. And I was scared to death of that guy. When Darth Vader is bowing to the Emperor, now I'm not, Vader could have taken the Emperor. I know, but I just, anyway. Good letter, though. Thank you for that letter. I appreciated that. Let's see. What do we got going now? Wow, over 2 hours. Well, people keep writing in. Mustack Review says, "G'day, Rob. Kingdom Come Australia boy here. Well, thank you. It's good to have you here. If you're in Australia, you can drink Cooper's beer, which is a favorite beer of mine that I don't think we can get anywhere in the United States. I don't think I've ever seen it here, but you can get it whenever you want." Jay Canada says, "Hey, Rob, would love to see a passionate movie fan like yourself make a genre-inspired movie along the lines of Carpenter, Cronenberg, Romero, etc." Well, I would like to do that too. I've only produced one horror movie, The Hills Run Red, which you might be able to see on Blu-ray later in 2020, maybe. But yeah, I would like to do that too. I directed one movie, and again, it didn't make a whole lot of money. I think it was a little bit before its time. Maybe I'll put it out and have more of a career. But I'm going to, after Tango Shalom, I'm really going to focus on the movie that I really want to make, that I've wanted to make for a really long time. It's a tough sell. It's going to be hard to sell unless I can get it cast, find money, but it's what I really want to do. I think it would be a genre classic, really, or at least a cult film that people loved. But who knows? Steven says, "Would you ever consider directing a casting couch scene?" Yeah, can I star in it? No, I mean, I worked on Femme Fatales. So, Femme Fatales was a show that was on Skinemax for a long time. They aired those forever. I directed 5 episodes of that. I mean, it would have to have some relevance. Um, if I was making a movie about the horrors of Hollywood and how it can be very exploitative to women. I talked about the book, Todd Grimson's horror novel, Brand New Cherry Flavor, getting made into a TV series with Rosa Salazar, who played Alita. First of all, I can't believe somebody's making that into a movie. My God, it's incredible. But you could have a scene like that in there. I could see doing a horrific bent on that. But I mean, after hearing about Harvey Weinstein and all of that, I've never been one. Anything that paints Hollywood in that kind of a bad light, especially the cliche of the casting couch, which is, by the way, a very real thing. It's so far, it's diametrically opposed to what I'm all about. I don't believe in exploiting people, actors, actresses, anybody. You want to make sure that your movie sets are safe places to be, and that people want to continue working with you. I think it's very important. This letter comes from Stephen Goggin. Dear Rob, I was 8 when I first saw Star Wars back in a place called the Savoy Cinema in Cork, in Ireland. 1977 was an interesting year for me. In Ireland of the time, most of the country only had one TV station called RTE. Some of the larger towns had a limited cable service known at the time called Pipe TV, where these towns could get BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. Sci-fi was hard to come by, and at the start of 1977, I was getting into Elvis films, where my parents would drop me off at my grandmother's house to meet cousins, and we would watch Elvis films every Saturday morning on BBC Two. So it was a big shock to hear of Elvis's passing that same year. However, the antidote to Elvis's passing was Star Wars, and what an amazing cinema experience it was. I went with an aunt and a cousin and a sister, and I think they were the only 2 other people in the cinema at the time. It was the nighttime show, and I was blown away by the experience. I've never experienced anything like the Death Star exploding before. It was a climactic moment that will stay with me for quite a while. TV experiences on TV station land prior to Star Wars were shows like the original Star Trek, the Planet of the Apes TV show, The Man from Atlantis, Logan's Run, and Gemini Man. Eventually, most places got the cable TV, and I discovered British classics like Quatermass and The Pit and Children of Stone and Blake 7. By the way, if you guys like Doctor Who and you want to watch a TV show that a lot of people don't know about, there's a British show, but I think a lot of you imagination connoisseurs would like is the 4-season Blake's 7. What a great show. It's a great sci-fi TV show. I highly recommend it. And yes, like many old episodes of Doctor Who, it's both shot on film and on videotape. So it's hard to get past the production value if that's what you're looking for. But if you enjoy things like Doctor Who, Blake 7 is a great, great show. I saw the rest of the Star Wars trilogy in the cinema, and I even got to meet David Prowse in full costume at a local shopping center between Empire and Jedi. That was a scary experience. He was tall. I also went to see The Phantom Menace in the cinema. What a complete opposite experience this was to see the original Star Wars films. And yet, we still live in hope. As always, live long and prosper. Stephen Goggin, The Irishman in Somerset. P.S. As far as I know, my own country, Ireland, hasn't produced any sci-fi. I could be wrong on this. Usually people will say Sean Connery in Zardoz, which I have not yet seen. What? But I think this is more dystopian fantasy than pure sci-fi. Sean was also in Darby O'Gill and the Little People. I think that's on Disney+. First of all, people, if you haven't seen John Borman's seminal Zardoz, what are you waiting for? Now, Zardoz is a pretty bonkers movie, but to me, it's when I think about 70s dystopian sci-fi, Zardoz is it's one of the movies you need to see. Now, if you don't know what Zardoz is, I want to say it takes place in like the 26th century. Basically, human civilization, not a lot going on there. and they're mostly the countryside is full of barbarism and horrors, and we've been really reduced to our baser natures by the other group of human beings, the immortals that live in this valley, and they've been living forever, and they're basically bored to death. Most of them are waiting to die, but they can't, and they have all this crazy technology. But one of them, who's kind of a trickster, who's been inspired, well, I won't say what he's been inspired by, but he becomes Zardoz, who flies around in a giant, I kid you not, giant stone head with a grimacing face on it. And he distributes guns to the brutals. That's what they're called, the brutals that live in the countryside, and they rape and they murder. Actually, they don't want them to rape because they don't want people to procreate, but they're brutals. What can they do? And Sean Connery plays one of these people, and he ends up stowing away aboard this stone head over the course of the plot, and ends up infiltrating the land of the immortals. And John Borman, who of course made Deliverance and who later directed Excalibur, who also directed Exorcist II: The Heretic. I have to tell you, Zardoz is bonkers, but it was shot by Jeffrey Unsworth. It is a beautiful looking film. Jeffrey Unsworth went on to shoot Superman, the movie. An incredible, incredible cinematographer. But if you haven't seen Zardoz, you got to see Zardoz. Every good imagination connoisseur owes it to themselves to see Zardoz. It's been released. You can get it on Blu-ray. It's definitely something to see. Well, everyone, I'm going to bring this Robservations number 284 to a close. What an interesting show this has been. I thought it was going to be, I didn't think I was going to have anything to talk about today. I have a ton of letters I have to get to. I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. Please, again, smash like if you like this channel, subscribe. If you don't, write me a message in the comments and tell me I'm a douchebag, or tell me what you really think of me. Don't mince words, Bones. What do you really think? I want to thank my moderators. I want to thank Jordy Lyons and Louis Yu, my new moderators. I want to thank the Honorable Mayor Mike Bodden of Riverdale, Iowa, who's, man, he got reelected, but boy, he's dealing with small town drama, political drama. And that's drama with D-R-A-A-M-A, drama. And I also want to thank Greg Smith and, of course, the detective, the man, the myth, Detective Jim. And it's great to have them as moderators. It's great to have you guys here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for going to the website. Remember, we are giving away Lucky Tiger. We're giving away a Lucky Tiger bottle of Lucky Tiger all over, head to tail body wash. Please enter, and you enter our drawing by just going to the website and commenting on anything. Go to the Burnettwork.net, comment on anything, and give us more 3-word reviews. They're hilarious. I love them all. So anyway, this concludes this. Oh wait, let me just make sure, because I keep seeing people dropping in chats, and I don't want to miss anybody, because it's funny. I'm always signing off people like, wait, they send me in chats and I feel bad. And they're, yes. Wow, people are coming out. Stephen, who asked me about the couch scene, also said, Stephen says, Rachel Starr or Bella Anderson, and favorite level in Shadow of the Empire N64. Mine is Ord Mantell, the IG-88 level. You know what, dude? I don't know, Rachel Starr or Bella Anderson. I don't know if I can answer that question. Shadows of the Empire, or I love that level. That was a great level. You know what I loved? I also loved the train level. I love the train level. But yeah, Shadows of the Empire, what a great game that was. What a great game. You know, I have my N64 somewhere, and I should drag it out and play it. I don't know if an would it play on an HD TV? I don't have a regular NTSC screen. I wonder what I have to do. That's an interesting question. Martini McFly says, so not getting a channel name change to the McClunky Work anytime soon? No, Martini. Really appreciate all of your efforts on this channel, Rob. Well, thank you. And by the way, thank you for supporting the channel very much. And again, Marty McFly says, said it before in the chat, but we'll say it here too. John Campea is like the sports center of movie blogs. Collider Live is college radio, but you, sir, are NPR, quality every time. Well, that's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me. I really appreciate that. And as you know, look, I've been saying I'm going to upgrade this channel. I am. For the 300th episode. This channel is going through the roof in terms of production value. I'll start having guests, and I'm still going to interact and do what I do here, but we're just going to have a lot more production value. And I'm going to be doing a lot more things. I'll just have a lot more things at my fingertips. And It'll be a far more visually interesting show. I'll have multiple camera angles. So I'm actually going to have a hot toy cam where I can hit a button at any one time and go hot toy cam, and there'll just be a lineup of hot toys, and all my graphic novels and all. It'll be fun. And then I want to have guests just come in. I've got friends of mine like Kevin Rubio, who's been bothering me to come on the show, who made Troops. I'd love to have him come on. I'd like to have it all set up so it'll be like plug and play. Like, one of the things I've learned, John Campea has taught me a great deal about YouTube. And John is really, I think, really good at what he does. His show, like you said, he'd love to know that it's Sports Center because it's really well produced. He has a lot of graphics. His brother-in-law, Ray Ora, does great work. And I think John really, really, really works hard to try and bring everybody the best show that he can. And he's constantly trying to upgrade his show. And, people have asked me if I'm going to do the tip thing that John does, which I think is great. I just don't quite know how. I have to figure out. The one thing about tips, for those of you who don't know, instead of like super chats to earn money for the channel, John has set up a tip thing where it's you can tip 24 hours. Because I get lots of people who write me. First of all, if you don't want to support the channel monetarily, that's fine. You shouldn't feel guilty about it. If you like to watch a show and participate, that's enough. I get people like, I watch your show all the time, but I've never contributed. You don't have to contribute. I mean, it's great if you do. And it keeps me going, and I very much appreciate it. But don't feel guilty if you can't. But the tip function allows people from around the world, it's a different way to generate stuff for the channel, because there's things I want to buy. Like, John's always buying new equipment, and he uses a lot of his income buying new cameras. Like, if you've never watched a John Campea show, note, or if you have, his new shot, his full-on shot, he bought a really nice camera, and specifically a prime lens that has a fixed focal length. You can't like zoom in. It's a fixed focal length. That's why the background's out of focus and he looks so sharp. It's a great camera shot. Well, he spent a lot of money to get that shot. I'd like to be upgrading the equipment, but you'll see that I've been buying things, and I'm going to finally put it all to use. But the fact that you said that this is NPR, I really appreciate that. I think it's great. I will take that. I will accept that. And I guess the dogs aren't here. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And what a great way to end. NPR. Can I say that Robservations is the NPR of genre shows? And I'll say that Martini McFly said so. And you know what, Stephen? I got to get back to you about Rachel Starr. Yes. Anyway, so this is the end of Robservations 284. Indeed, it is. And remember, every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, I will see you tomorrow on the John Campea Show. I actually will be here on Thanksgiving. I'm going to do a Thanksgiving show, but I'll see you tomorrow as well. And I'm on the John Campea Show. And as always, have a better day.